Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tetzeli Talks. My name is Kevin Gregg. I'm a partner at the law firm Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt. That Tetzeli is Helena Tetzeli, who is with me to share her 25 plus years of experience to talk about new updates in immigration and just the general happenings in immigration. How are you doing today, Helena?
I'm good, Kevin, and your introductions are getting better.
Well, I try. If you can't learn as
Practice.
you go, then
Yeah,
what's the purpose of
it's
you
true.
anyway?
It's true.
I'm just
Thank
kind of
you.
making this up as I go.
I know we're spitballing. Yeah.
I just wanted to say for people who don't know me personally, I have been a father now for about 8 days, and I am already so tired.
Of
I'm so
paternity leave, right?
I'm so I right. I'm coming back from maternity leave right now to do Tetzeli talks with Elena Tetzeli because it cannot. I'm so tired. So if I zone out during this talk, it's not because of anything related to you. It's solely based on this terrorist of an infant.
I foresee you using the baby card for many years to come,
Oh
Kevin,
my God.
even after the child is in college.
Right,
Yeah.
like 15,
Yeah.
16
Yeah.
years old. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I've got a baby at home. I have to leave
Sorry.
this guy. Got to leave this individual
No,
here.
got a teenager. That's probably even better as an excuse.
Well, not with the firm though.
Nothing
Now,
against teenagers, but yeah.
now everything against them. We are coming to everybody, not live, but recording on April 29th, 2024. And so on top of,
August, Kevin,
did I say shit? That's why
it's
I said
the
that's why I got that right. That's
that's
what I was like, it's August. Let's
okay.
reword. We're gonna edit that out or we're gonna keep it in so everybody
Keep it
can know what
in.
it's
Keep it
like
in. It's real. Keep it
to be a
in.
working dad in
Mm-hmm.
2024. You get your A's mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
August 29th, 2024. And on the top of everybody's mind is President Biden's Keeping Families Together, the Parole in Place program. So that's what we're going to talk about mostly today, but we got some other things as well. Um,
Well, we talked about it in our first episode, but now we have updates or there have been developments.
well, we proved correct, right, in our negative cynicism that the matter would get challenged in court, right?
Just like that.
Well,
Just like that.
I saw in the Facebook group a few folks were so on top of it. They got their applications in immediately and they got approved within
Mm-hmm.
like the 1.5 day period.
Mm-hmm. And that's it for now. Right. For now.
9 people got PIPs. What is the parole in place, keeping families together, Helena?
Okay, so this is a program that was announced by the administration way back when, June 17th, 2024. And it's meant to help individuals who are married to US citizens and have been here a long period of time, 10 years is the minimum, and who are generally admissible, don't have a criminal record, and can demonstrate that there's some humanitarian purpose for granting the foreign national spouse of PIP parole in place, which makes them doesn't make them eligible for adjustment, but it fulfills one requirement
Right.
to be eligible for adjustment of status that you've been inspected and paroled or been admitted with the visa. So this is for people who entered without parole, so people who entered EWE without parole or with a visa. And it's meant to avoid this very long, multiple year, expensive, for some people, risky process of having to leave the United States after first having an immigrant visa approved and a waiver approved of the 10-year bar. And so, as we correctly predicted, not that we have to be savants to predict Republican states challenging, Democratic administrations, executive orders on immigration, but sure enough, the state of Texas, as usual, filed a lawsuit in the Eastern District of Texas, seeking injunctive relief, and sure enough, the court granted an administrative stay. So for now, an administrative stay, I think for 14 days, issued a briefing schedule, and essentially put approvals of I think it's an I-131F is the
Yeah.
form for the parole, on hold. Although the court held that USCIS can accept applications, but they cannot issue approvals pending the court's decision on whether or not they're going to enter an injunction or not, a preliminary injunction or a TRO or not. So that's where we are with that, and we'll see. And as you were saying before we started, recording this show today, it's like deja vu all over again. It's like DACA.
Yeah.
Um, And
Oh,
if
and
it's
more so, hopefully not DAPA.
hopefully not
Obama.
DACA, hopefully not
Hope,
DACA Redux, but
well, D, not DAPA with a P, which just the parents of the DACAs that just got killed at the end of the Obama administration with the judge in the Southern District of Texas.
no,
No,
hopefully not DACA, but DAPA with a
right,
P, but also hopefully not DACA.
right.
Hopefully this is not going to be subjected to years and years of litigation. And I guess that will get resolved in November.
I want to dig deeper into
Yeah.
exactly what it is because we're getting those questions all the time. But beforehand, there's a lot of cynicism with the federal courts, and there are legitimate reasons for the cynicism. And I don't like the Trump, Obama, Biden judge concept, but it is sometimes indicative. This uh, judge was appointed by former President Trump when he was current President Trump, as occurs. But who knows what this judge will do? But some very good researchers did find either a published or an unpublished win at the Fifth Circuit that this judge did when he was in private practice, a pro bono asylum case. I haven't read it, but so this judge, doesn't necessarily hate immigrants, right? Because he took on a pro bono asylum case, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years ago, took it all the way up to the appellate court. I don't know what that says. Probably doesn't
Probably
say much,
nothing.
but it's
Yeah.
interesting. And if
Yeah.
we're going to try to read the tea leaves, which is all we can really do. But, before we get into the current status of that, what it really means, it does seem, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just a perfect encapsulation of immigration. We're just building like mud onto mud onto mud. I mean, this is to avoid the requirement that people who are married to U.S. citizens get an I-601A approved, which requires an extreme hardship showing to their U.S. citizen or LPR spouse or parent, because they have to go abroad and get their inspection and admission or parole. That's what this parole in place will not require them to do that. But the whole reason that a 601A is required is because Congress got rid of 245I
245I,
and
exactly.
effective as of
Hmm.
2001. And so
Hmm.
like we're just going in circles, right? And we're a hole was they, for better or for worse, they wanted to punish people who entered unlawfully in 97, but that proved unworkable. So they created this, there's a waiver. There was always a waiver, but the Obama administration realized that no one was taking advantage of the waiver because it was too big of a risk to leave the US without the waiver. So
Right.
they
So
created
they
this way
they
to
created a
apply before.
stateside waiver.
But even
Correct.
that is terrible.
Mhm.
Look at the
Even
Munoz
that is too
decision from the
nice.
Supreme Court. Mr.
Right.
Munoz gets
Hmm.
that waiver stuck outside of the United States. And so now the Biden, and by the way, they're backlogged 4.5 years because of the Trump administration. Or the Biden administration said, you know what, let's just give people a parole. It's that we're back to 97, right?
Mm,
I mean, not really, but that
not
is,
really,
if you
but
just keep
you're right
245I,
about
we could
mud
have
upon mud about mud. It's just
reaction,
reaction, counter
reaction.
reaction, reaction, counter reaction.
Well,
But
if we just keep 245I and we don't change it in 96, then
exactly. Charge
all
a
this is,
fine, the $1,000 fine, increase the fine
yeah.
if you want, but yeah, no.
So there's current, and so what it is, you said it, but it's nothing except an inspection and parole. It is not a substantive decision that you're eligible to adjust status. It just
Correct.
gets you that first requirement if you entered unlawfully. If you've
And
already entered
and,
lawfully, you
and
don't
we've
need
had
it.
this I'm not an expert on immigration and people in the military, but we've had this policy for
Right,
spouses of, members of the military, of the U.S. military. This is not brand new. It's not something that they just pulled out of the air. I mean, this is something that has not been challenged previously in
right.
other contexts during other administrations. So
Don't
I
let
don't know.
Texas know that. Don't let
Yeah,
Texas know
yeah.
that precedent. But
Well,
there are people who've come here on a tourist visa and overstayed, or a student visa and overstayed, and they've got criminal problems or they've been ordered removed. This isn't for
they can
them.
adjust status,
They can already do it.
assuming
They
they're
have
otherwise
other
admissible. They can
problems.
adjust
They have
status.
other
Correct.
issues.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So
what are some of the requirements? I mean, I've looked at the regs, you've looked at the regs. These regs are pretty helpful. I mean, it's not sufficient that you are simply married to a US citizen and entered without authorization. I mean, what are some of the things that if this program goes into
I'm
effect,
going
will
to pull
allow
out
people to
the
get
administrative stay
a
order
PIP.
because there's some language on this. Hold on.
While you're looking at that, I mean, one of the things that jumped out to me is like people with removal orders can get it, but there's a presumption that they shouldn't get it and they have to overcome it. For example, there's all these little standards and burdens that are put into the regulation. Um, they've really created a comprehensive framework, I guess it looks like, to see who gets a parole and who doesn't. It's not just arbitrary. Suffice it to say, right, the regulations really lay out who's eligible and who's not. You really need an attorney for this because even something as simple as getting a parole can be complicated.
Exactly. And I've gotten a lot of calls from prospectives who think that they or their foreign national spouse, the foreign national spouse may be calling the U.S. citizen spouse, may be calling on behalf of the foreign national spouse, and they may be eligible until they get to the part where they tell you that the foreign national spouse has entered the United States illegally more than once.
Right,
And then you have the permanent bar, which prevents you from adjusting status, also prevents you from obtaining the I-601A
right.
waiver. And while that's not addressed specifically in the regulations on the parole in place, the parole in place, even if it's approved for someone in this situation,
Right.
is not going to cure the permanent bar. So it
Yeah.
can be complicated. It can be complicated. And as you noted, yeah, you have a removal order. If the foreign national has a removal order, that's another hurdle that has to be overcome. So the court, I'm going back to this order, the court focused on the fact that by requiring evidence that there's a humanitarian reason for the parole to be granted, that they're really ignoring the purpose of parole, which is that a private benefit is not the purpose of parole. So I don't know, maybe they're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and,
Seems a bit tongue in cheek.
re-promulgate these, this regulation.
So all
But
the Biden administration has to say is, you know what, it's in the public benefit to let all spouses of U.S. I mean, come on, that's a pretty bit
well,
tongue-in-cheek argument to me, but you know,
I'm sure they're throwing the kitchen sink at it. And we'll see once the court set a briefing schedule, and it'll be interesting to see how the administration responds.
the whole thing about administrative stays in the Fifth Circuit is a bit beyond the scope of our expertise, but it's an interesting thing in and of itself. I mean, this as of the date of this recording, a temporary restraining order
I
hasn't been
know.
issued.
Mhm.
Those are supposed to be expedited, but an administrative stay that lasts what, 7, 10 days? That's pretty extraordinary. I mean, administrative stay is just, I think it's just like the judge needs to catch their breath. I'm not even sure. It's like a unique thing to the Fifth Circuit that's starting to get, or maybe not, but it's starting to get expanded in the Fifth Circuit to be a pseudo TRO, and that's kind of worrisome just from a litigation perspective in general.
No, I agree. I agree. In the court, you can tell, you can read this, and they don't expressly um indicate, the judge doesn't expressly indicate that he's aware that this may be perceived as overreaching, but he does take great pains in the order to explain, the basis for an administrative stay.
Right, because he
So,
knows that they're under attack in the Fifth.
exactly. Yeah.
But
So
Justice Barrett had like an interesting concurrence about how she thinks either she thought they're proper or improper. I can't even remember which case it was recently. There was an administrative stay out of the Fifth Circuit, maybe in the abortion context, I can't recall, but very interesting. Stay tuned. We'll know next time we have a call.
I'm sure there'll be
And
some new developments next time.
and so what's your prediction this time? When we talk next, will the PIP have been enjoined or will they be accepting and adjudicating applications?
I'm going to not go out on a limb, and I'm going to predict that it will be enjoined, if only
Uh,
because, yeah, I'm sorry, not because I predict it's going to be enjoined because of the provenance of the district court judge that's been assigned the case.
Helena, if you can pick one thing that you don't know, why not pick hope? The audacity.
I'm a realist. Yeah, as are you. So, I mean, what would you predict, Kevin?
I don't, I asked the questions on Tetzeli.
Yeah, okay.
Tetzeli
This is a
answers the
dialogue.
question.
It's not an interrogation. What would you predict?
I think it's interesting. Yeah, it's
Mm.
probably getting joined.
They're gonna enjoy it.
More importantly, no matter what happens, if Kamala Harris doesn't win the election, it's all dead in the water anyway. What's going on with that? What are the Democrats saying about immigration as of August 29th in a potential Harris administration?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I thought that, and again, I don't think I haven't read their platform. I don't know what the formal position is on immigration. I just know, what I read in the New York Times and what I actually heard from the speeches at the convention. But I think there's a pivot now. And the pivot is they're trying to tread this fine line between demonizing immigrants, which is what, the Trump Republican Party is doing. Let's all be, I think we can all agree about that, or everybody who's listening to this podcast can agree on that. And glorifying immigration in general. I think that what they're trying to do is blame Trump with some basis for stymieing control of the border by telling all his cronies and all his sycophants to not support the bipartisan, Langford Murphy bill, which would have allocated more funding for more CBP officers and also would have, given the executive branch some more authority over immigration, and the situation at the border. And I think that's smart. And I think she's also, meaning Kamala Harris, also trumpeting her qualifications and her mindset, from her perspective as a prosecutor, that she's pro law enforcement, including at the border. And I
No.
think she's trying to reassure the base. And I know that has been criticized by more progressive Democrats, but I think it's smart. I know that I believe there is an increase in concern over immigration, more so than under the Obama administration, the prior Democratic administration, and the Trump administration, by Democrats, by people who are not normally anti-immigration. But I think there's a lot of frustration because of the perception, correct or incorrect, that the border at least was out of control during part of the Biden administration. And without agreeing with whether or not that is reality, we all know that perception is a form of reality. And I think the Democrats realize that might affect at least some support that they might otherwise receive in November. I know just anecdotally from clients I've talked to, prospective clients, who I know are not xenophobic or not anti-immigration. Maybe immigrants themselves are married to immigrants, that they're really frustrated because of this perception that everyone is just coming into the border and getting a green card or getting a work permit.
Yeah, but I mean that's wrong.
I know that's wrong,
Per
but that's
perception
the
can be.
perception.
We have one president who uses perception and makes it through. We have one person running for president who uses perception to affect reality when it's not necessarily true. You know as well
I
as I do that
understand that.
nobody is crossing over and just getting a green card.
And we I'm sure when you've had comments like that made to you by, US citizens you're talking to, whether they're clients or friends or associates, you correct them and you explain nicely that's not what happens. They're put in proceedings. They may never get asylum. We have obligations under international law
Well,
to
they don't
allow.
get it. They definitely don't get a green
That
card
most of them
anytime
don't.
soon. Well, they'll be
But
like, there's not a green card,
right. But if you're not an
machine.
immigration attorney and you're just reading, the news every day about this and the numbers going up the border and the immigration courts being backlogged with all these asylum cases, and you're waiting a year and a half for your immigrant visa for your spouse to be approved,
No.
and you get an RFE and you pay these high fees. And I mean, I've heard people say, we're doing it the legal way. I may as well, just have, fill in name of, spouse or or immediate family member, go to the southern border and come in. It'll be quicker. I mean, I've heard comments like
No.
that, and I've never heard those before. Um,
I guess my only point is yeah, but we shouldn't reward misrepresenting facts just because it affects people. But yes, we have to work in the
but
reality
it's
that we
reality.
live.
So, Mike, but circling back, I think that that's a reasonable strategy from a political perspective by the Democrats to say, we don't agree with uncontrolled immigration and we want people to come in legally, and this is what we're going to do to address the problem, whether it's a problem or not, depends on your perspective. But I think they have to accept the fact that it is a perspective of a great many people in the US, not just MAGA Republicans right now.
Yeah.
So, and I think she's smart to do that, hopefully.
I haven't
And
heard
that will
anything
undo
from
some of the damage to her base.
I haven't heard anything from Trump in now in he's been running for president since 2015. So it's been 9 years. I haven't heard anything from Donald Trump except just shut it all down, which he was only able to do because of the pandemic, which then once the pandemic was lifted, resulted in a tsunami of backlogged people who have
Mm-hmm.
been dying in camps on the Mexico US border. But that has now subsided, maybe evened out after a few years post pandemic. You can't just shut down the border unless you have a national emergency, unless you're going to violate the law. Although the Langford Murphy bill actually would have provided that legal authority, it did not pass the House because of Donald Trump. But other than, let's build a wall and just shut it all down, which quite frankly, I'm not even sure Donald Trump actually wants to do. It just sounds good. President Biden has been doing stuff to lessen at least the flow at the southern border, right?
And
There's this
successfully,
parole in
right.
place, and there's various other parole programs that he's been doing now for a couple of years.
Right. And the number of encounters at the border, at the southern border, have gone down
Yeah.
markedly. I mean, it's been successful from that perspective. But that's not what people are hearing. I mean,
Well, but it gives a lie to the issue. Is the issue that there are too many people coming in without being inspected and us knowing who they are, or is the issue that there are too many people with funny sounding names and brown skin coming in?
oh,
Because
it depends. It
if it
depends
is
on
the
who you
latter,
are. I agree
well,
with you there, but
well,
it
it would
depends.
appear that the states that have sued the Biden administration for his parole program would be into that latter camp because those individuals are coming
I
in
agree.
with
No, I
this
agree.
inspection and
Yeah,
background check, it would appear.
I agree. I
What's
agree.
going on with those parole programs, by the way? I haven't heard about them in a while.
Well, the U for You, the pro program, the daddy of all the pro programs, the electronic online fast, pass parole programs, U for You, was never paused. It's still in effect. Um, the the Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela parole program was briefly put on hold because there were complaints of fraud, not by the parolees or the beneficiaries who are being admitted in parole status, but by U.S. supporters. You
No.
have to have a U.S. supporter sponsor you by submitting an I-134A, affidavit of financial support. And there were individuals apparently selling their support online. Um, and so the Biden administration put it on pause, I think a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not correct. I remember the exact date. And they just announced that it's been restarted. They did it in DHS investigated, found, I guess, a few cases, fewer than anticipated, of some fraud. They've apparently now requiring additional evidence of financial uh, resources by the US supporter, and have implemented some security features. They don't say what, probably quite reasonably, they don't say what, in the
Yeah,
I-134A
right.
process, and it's starting again. So it was taking a long time. I mean, when these parole programs for Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela started, there were people getting paroles
Yeah.
approved in a few days or weeks, and it's taking a long time now, 6 months, a year. But at least in theory, it's back online. So that's an option. Another
That's
option.
good. We've got some Haitian and Cuban clients who've been waiting for a long time and no idea what's going on with their cases because it's just we all believe it is correctly that it's been delayed. And I'm not the first to observe this. It does seem though like okay, there's some fraud. I mean, there's quite frankly, there's always going to be
There's
some fraud
always going
in
to
any
be fraud.
program. But
Human
like
nature. Yeah.
these parole programs and a lot of the USCIS stuff in general recently has had a very clear bent to try to put USCIS in the middle of the attorney-client relationship. We
Mm.
couldn't even apply for these things for these parolees. They had to go into the system, and then there was like a whole phone
Two-factor
thing back and forth.
verification and text and yeah, it's
Attorneys are we're the only look, there are not disreputable attorneys, but attorneys are the only ones who owe an ethical duty to the US government. If you take out the attorney, then you do invite unscrupulous characters, at least more of them than and I'm biased. But then if
agreed.
you had an
And
attorney.
right, yeah, agreed. Yeah, not something I'm happy about. And I've heard complaints from individuals trying to go through the process who want legal
Yeah.
representation. And and we've represented
Yeah.
clients and supporters in the process, but it is it's unwieldy. Um, it's hard to
You hire
handle.
an attorney and then you still got to do so much yourself. But what's the point? I mean,
Mhm.
you and I could represent that $1 billion company in federal court right now, and that person would literally have nothing to do ever until maybe they have to, sign an affidavit. But,
Right,
a Haitian person without a computer in Port-au-Prince who's got a gang gun to his head
exactly.
has to go through the whole, it doesn't quite make sense to me, but
It doesn't. It does not. But so much in the world of immigration does not make sense.
that's right. What
Yeah.
is you for you? I'm not, is that a
Oh, I'm
name?
sorry. United for Ukraine.
Oh, right, right, right. That
That was the first
Ukrainians,
parole
right,
program. I think it was uh, started by the Biden administration, right shortly after the invasion.
right,
Um,
right.
and it was, I mean,
And
it's been a success
Afghans
so
too. That
fast. Yeah.
Afghans have a special program too, right?
They do. Don't
Yeah.
ask me much about it because
I didn't.
I have to confess I don't know very much about it, but there is a program for Afghani refugees. Yes.
Oh, cool. Well, that does about sum up this episode of Tetzeli Talks. All about parole, all about weird administrative, executive things going on in immigration to try to plug holes and fix things that are the products of other things, which kind of is, again, immigration in a nutshell.
And
And that,
immigration law in this country right now, which is it's so incredibly dysfunctional. It's like a Frankenstein monster. It really is.
have you ever seen Young Frankenstein, though? In Young Frankenstein, the Frankenstein is not really a monster.
No, Frankenstein was a doctor.
Right, but
Right.
even the Frankenstein monster is a pretty good person in Young Frankenstein, the Mel
I'm older
Brooks
than you.
movie.
I'm going back to the original, Shelley
You're
Frankenstein.
not
Yeah. Not
1920s
that much
old.
older, but
You're not. No, in Young
right.
Frankenstein, that's 1970s Mel
I'm not
Brooks.
19th century older,
The
but yeah.
Frankenstein monster actually is a good person. My point is calling something a Frankenstein isn't necessarily a bad thing, and so we're gonna land the plane with
It
that.
is in this case.
It is in this
I
case, but
meant it. It
the
was
PIP
not a
you
compliment.
meant it bad.
It's
The PIP
not a
program is
compliment.
going to survive the TRO. It's going to be in place. We're going to have all the paroles. That's how we're
You're
ending this.
predicting?
No,
So you are going out on a limb now.
I'm manifesting.
Oh, okay.
Manifesting.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Manifesting.
Um, Good. From your lips to God's ears, which is another form of manifestation, I think.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for talking with me this month, Helena. And until next time, this has been Tetzeli Talks, a Kurzban,
Get some
Tetzeli,
sleep,
and Pratt
Kevin.
production, and I will get some sleep.
Okay. Bye. Oh, there goes my phone.